normally we have like something like a quote, but I think today, Tom, you should just clap in your hands in front of the screens. Okay, right, because I need this to edit everything. And yes, fuck the quote. Today we are talking about our top 5 favorite movies of all time with 5 honorable mentions. And before we start with that, I have the great honor to present a special guest star appearance. Please introduce yourself. I'm really bad at this.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm Sam from Sammysreviews. I do YouTube where I talk about everything that I like movies, albums, like everything art related. And I'm so happy to be on your channel, guys.
We are very honored. My name is Philip.
And I'm Thomas. Yes, welcome. We're very happy to have you.
All right, and
Thank you.
yes, this video is probably going to be a little bit too long anyway, so just start with the honorable mentions. Be our guest if you want to. Yes, what are your 5 honorable mentions?
Okay, I wrote them down. I'm going to be looking down a lot because I have my notes. Okay, so my 5 honorable mentions. I think I will start with like a movie that I was so desperately wanting to put on my top 5, but I just felt like I'm more connected to the other movies. I think I will go with Persona. This movie, like I saw it when I was really young. First time I saw it, what stuck to my mind was the imagery. I just saw something that I will never forget. I couldn't fully understand the movie, but all I knew that I kind of registered in my mind that this is a movie I will be seeing a lot growing up. And the more I see it, the more puzzle pieces click together. I just think that this movie is indicates what is it like to be isolated, what is it like to be lonely, and it kind of does like a perfect balance between both the main characters and how they kind of merge together by the end of the movie. It's just a perfect movie. So I think I will start with Persona. Okay, so my second honorable mention, I will go with Birdman. Alejandro Inarritu is a director that I just connect with. Any of his movies, they just like feel like we understand each other. I like the way he directs. I like the pacing of his movies. I like how he presents his narratives. It's just, I thought I was kind of in between Birdman and Bardu, but I just think Birdman is a perfect movie. The camera work in this movie and the cinematography by Lubisky, it's just something that sticks to your mind. This movie is shot as if it's a one long shot, the entire movie. It's mimicking that. And for someone who loves cinema, this is just like a dream come true. And of course, the story of the Michael Keaton and Edward Norton, and just the story of Batman in general, and how they are just there's so much theater in this movie. It's just, made for cinema lovers in general. I love this movie so much. It's a great character study. And a movie that's a bit more recent, and but I'm sure I want to put it in my honorable mentions, is my third pick, which is Parasite by Bong Joon-ho. This movie, I saw it in a full cinema. And it was just such a surreal kind of experience because everyone was just so attentive to the movie. No one was talking. No one was kind of just blinking an eye. And the pacing and the tone of this movie is so entertaining and keeps you at the edge of your seat. And I could feel the energy around me in the cinema. And there was like this specific dramatic long shot in the middle of the movie. It was just like keeps heightening and heightening with an amazing soundtrack, and suddenly, with everybody's gut instinct, everyone just clapped after the scene in the cinema. Everyone, just for a second, everyone wanted to clap, and they did, and it was amazing. It just felt like I'm watching a movie that's going to become a cult classic in 5 to 10 years. So Parasite, it's a beautiful social commentary about like the social ladder in our life, and it's so entertaining. So that's my third pick. Okay, so the final two movies, I think I will go with Amour with Michael Haneke. I love Michael Haneke. That dude is brilliant. I remember in 2018, I took the entire year just watching Michael Haneke movies. I was obsessed with him. I went back to seeing like TV movies. You guys like him?
I love him. I think Tom is like, yeah,
I'm kind of indifferent on him. The couple movies I've seen by him, I like, but I never fell in love with any of them.
Okay. It's just, I love Michael Haneke so much. I feel like um, he's so confident in what he wants to say, and he keeps incorporating the same ideas in different ways in his movies. And he's such a perfectionist, so his movies are so it just sticks to your mind. I remember when I saw Amour, I saw it twice. First time I saw it, I believed that I thought I saw one of the most miserable, horrible, devastating movies of all time. And I was like, "Oh my god, what is that? I'm depressed." And then second time I saw it, I just felt like this is the most beautiful, the most romantic, the most humane movie I've ever seen. And I don't know what is it with the shift, but I just feel it was kind of a character development. I understood what is it like to be human, and that being human or being in a relationship with someone or friends with someone, it comes with responsibility, which is something that's heavy to kind of be familiar with at a young age. Maybe that's why I had this shift, but it's a truly passionate and harsh slap in the face of a movie. But I love Amour. Final honorable mention, I had to put a horror movie, and it's also recent, so I'm gonna be putting The Witch. I love The Witch. I think The Witch is a perfect movie. The Witch is a perfect movie, honestly. I think it's a being a period horror drama piece of a movie, and it gives off like folk tale kind of aesthetic to it. And I love the idea of the movie, the idea that there is a reason for evil, and there is the movie just poses the question, what is evil and where does it come from? And it also gives you the answer that bullying and hatred and just feeling that you are unheard is the root of all evil. This is what makes people react and then become evil. So I just think and it was Anya Taylor-Joy's debut, and I love Anya Taylor-Joy. I just feel like The Witch is a perfect movie, from the cinematography to the direction to the acting to the screenplay. It offers everything I want from a movie. And these were my 5 honorable mentions.
Yes, very nice. Thank you. I think it makes sense for me to continue because I also have Persona in my honorable mentions. This was my favorite movie for a very, very, very long time not because I personally vibed with it necessarily. That's because I've thrown it out of the list and so on, but because it is really just so perfectly made. I agree with that. And by perfect, I mean that when I watched it, every shot and every cut was so interesting that I was like on the edge of my seat just because of the edits and so on. And I can probably recap half of this movie shot for shot and create like a shot list and be like 50% accurate at least, because but it's so intense. I think that's what I should maybe make clear, that my honorable mentions are not really like the numbers 10 to 6 on my list. It's a completely different list in a sense than my actual top 5 favorite movies. So my top 5 favorite movies are those movies that I would take on an island with me because I vibe with them, because I love them, and so on. Those honorable mentions are the movies that I think are so brilliantly made that I cannot but admire them and love them for that, but they are just like too intense, right? Like you're the people that you admire most, at least that's the case for me, are not really people that I want to spend a lot of time with necessarily because they are so intense. If someone is really incredibly smart, you really don't want to be with this guy all the time and so on. So, yes, Persona is just too intense for me. The same thing with Sans Soleil by Chris Marker. Um, I think this took the place as my favorite movie after Persona, and I also threw it away because it's like too intense. Um, it is, I would say, the most important movie for upcoming filmmakers. This is always my recommendation. What the fuck? My my fucking headphones just shut off, or at least they said power off. Ah, never mind. I don't uh I don't hear anything. Never mind. Let's continue with Sans Soleil. It's my number one recommendation because I think you learn pretty much everything you need to know about cinema, how the rhythm of it functions, and it's probably also the most inspiring film I ever watched because you could shoot this movie on an iPhone without any money. And so, yes, that's just very impressive. And after that, I would say something like Shandil Man, same thing, amazing movie, but I cannot watch this all the time. And also Kaschier by Michael Haneke. Okay, we are back to Michael Haneke. I love Michael Haneke. Um, I don't know if I can put it into words in like a few seconds. What I he is like. Maybe let me put it like this. He said that he almost never shoots a symmetrical shot because the beauty of symmetry is almost too vulgar for him. It's the same thing with music. Like he loves music, and that's why he puts so little music into his movies. He just respects it so much, and it's like such a rarity that you see someone who is not just saying, "Yeah, I want to make movies because it's like fun for me, and I think it's all like a big joke. Let's explore some ideas and so on." I mean, I appreciate that. I like that. I like Quentin Tarantino and Lars von Trier and so on, who I think are doing things like that. But for Haneke, it really seems to be like a quasi sacred thing to do, and I highly admire that. And yes, and the last one, then of course, the logical progression of this is of course 166 minutes of madness, which is like a movie that we made over probably a decade, and it's probably not a great movie, but it captures our childhood in a, I think, very honest way. And it's not like if you watch, it has a story and so on. It has like an incredibly complex story with like 20 characters plus with like multiple dimensions and so on. And there's a lot of blood and sex and all of that. So I think it's honest about a childhood in the same sense that Michael Haneke is honest about children, that children are mostly like really evil and awful human beings. And you see that in 166 minutes. And yeah, it says a lot about us. Never mind, I'm finished.
Okay, so my first pick for an honorable mention is the film Mother from the year 2017 by Darren Aronofsky. This is a film that I never, ever, ever would have expected to like as much as I did. I randomly watched this one day on Netflix because I thought the cover looked really cool, and this film captured me like no other horror film from this modern period. I mean, we've talked about The Witch a little bit, and I like this film very much. Other people maybe will call Hereditary or something the modern horror masterpiece. I say it's Mother. This film raises my pulse every time I watch it from start to finish. It's really an incredible film. It has surrealistic elements. I don't know how to describe it. It's a very unique experience, and I highly, highly recommend it to everyone. My next film is also a horror film, one that I've loved since I first saw it as a child, probably, which is A Nightmare on Elm Street by Wes Craven, the original. This is just a very fun film. This is a film I throw on for my friends when we have a movie night or something. You know, you got your classic slasher story, basically about just some teens fighting off an evil character. Freddy Krueger is a really fun horror villain. He is one of the few that has that actually speaks, that has one-liners and stuff. Robert England plays him perfectly, in my opinion. And yeah, it's a film I can throw on all day, every day. It's just a lot of fun. Not so much fun is my next film, M, by Fritz Lang, which is very much a dark crime drama. I mean, it has a certain sense of humor that Lang always uh, manages to get in there somehow. But in its essence, it's a film about a child murderer, and Lang very cleverly uh, helps us to understand this murderer's perspective. Uh, why not exactly sympathizing with him? It's a very philosophically complex film, in my opinion, and the time we have is way too short to go into all the details. It's also brilliantly crafted, of course. It's one of the all time greatest. I don't think anyone would disagree. And the same could be said for my next film, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, from the year 1920. It's a German expressionist film, which is a movement I very much love. And this film is visually so unique that some people credit it to for giving Tim Burton basically his entire career and stuff. um, yeah, all the sets, even the shadows, are painted on by hand, and the screenplay is incredible. The screenplay is one of my favorites of any film ever. Uh, Again, it's quite complex. People are still trying to figure out what exactly it all means in the end. And yeah, again, a film that everyone needs to watch at least once, in my opinion. And the last film on my list of honorable mentions is one that I really wanted to put in, but I just couldn't. It's The Godfather, of course. It's an all-time classic, and I mean, I always liked The Godfather ever since I first saw it, but the last time I rewatched this, um, it was really funny because in my head, while I was popping in the Blu-ray and stuff, I was going through the scenes that I was looking forward to watching, and I was like, "Oh man, this opening is so great! I can't wait to watch it." And the entire wedding scene actually is so great. And then the scene where the guy gets shot at the fucking
You
what's it
don't
called?
have to explain the entire movie. You got
I was about to no, but that's exactly my point. In my head I literally went through the entire movie and was like, man, I'm so looking forward to every single scene, and that's something pretty unique to this movie, and that's why I put it in the honorable mentions. Uh, yeah, I've never had that with any movie basically. That before watching, I go through it in my head and I'm like, yeah, I'm looking forward to literally every second of this almost 3 hour movie. So yeah, those are my five honorable mentions.
uh, yeah, I mean,
That's great.
I disagree with that, but whatever. I also wanted to say, it would be interesting to know the only movie I have not seen from this entire list is Birdman. Have you seen all the other movies? I'm curious.
I haven't seen all the films. I also haven't seen Birdman. I have seen Persona. Um, Probably also at a too young age to really appreciate and understand it. And I've also seen The Witch, of course, and I think I've seen all the films you mentioned.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen some of the stuff you mentioned, guys. Some of them I've only heard of them or just like I know them, but I've never seen them. But I have a question for you. What inspired you to direct your movie?
Um, Old other horror movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Evil Dead, and I were not allowed to watch those movies, so I had to fantasize about what the fuck could be going on there. And so I had to make them myself because then I was allowed to actually watch them. Yeah, that's it.
I mean, maybe we could.
Wow.
Oh, do you want to start with your number 5?
Oh yeah, if there are no follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay. So, number 5 on my list. Okay, so I will go with Certified Copy by Abbas Kiarostami. I love this movie. I think this movie is it's a puzzling movie. It requires a lot from you as a viewer to kind of understand what's going on. The movie simply talks about the idea of what is an original piece and what is a copy piece. And if the original story has a copied story, does it matter which is which and where did it start and which is original? And this is exactly what's happening in the movie in terms of direction, in terms of the story, in terms of like the metaphors and allegories inside the movie. It just poses this idea that like the more you go on with the movie, the more you question the connection between the two main characters. At the beginning, you think they're just strangers, then you think they are married, then you think no, they're not married, and just the movie poses the question: does it matter? As long as you are gaining something from the screenplay and the conversations between the characters, and as long as you're seeing something that you like, does it matter what is this question? So the movie is just puzzling. It keeps posing questions and questions, and it never gives you the answer. And at a certain point, you just get the movie. You're like, the answer doesn't matter. That's it. And I love Juliette Binoche. She's a great actress. She's a great everything that she's in. She makes it 10 times prettier. And it's the movie just kind of like reflects what is it like to be inside someone's mind. They're always talking, they're always in a stream of consciousness. You can just feel the characters talking how they think. Like they just don't register before talking, and it's the best thing ever because you can see how human it feels like and how improvised. Although I have read about this movie that this movie is not improvised at all. Every single thing is written to like the breath, but it feels like it's you're peeking through someone's life, that you're not supposed to see these intimate moments in the best way possible. So yeah, so this is my number 5. I would like to know yours.
Well, yes, first of all, I wanted to say, great, I have not seen it. I think, Tom, you have not seen it either, yeah. I have only seen Close Up by Kiarostami, but yeah, I loved it because it seems to me, I mean, you perfectly sold the movie and I have to watch it now because that sounds really great. Is it true that Kiarostami, it seems to me, that he's like, on the one hand, he's exploring this super intellectual subject matters, like in Close Up and so on, and also, like you described it right now, it sounds like the thesis for like a French philosopher and or something like that, and um, at the same time, it really feels completely improvised, especially with Close Up, with this like half of it is like a documentary. But okay, I don't want to go too deep into all of this because he actually has to drive away at some point. But that,
Oh,
yeah, but
okay.
that doesn't matter. I can continue your list. You are so predictable.
Okay, we have enough time, I think, if you hurry up a bit.
My number 5 is The Innocents. I don't even remember the fucking director. Never mind. It's from 1961. He's already Googling. And yes, it's like a classic ghost story. And
Jack Clayton.
yes, exactly. Thank you. Yes, what do
Yeah.
I like? I mean, first of all, it's all in all, it's a great movie. I would say it's like amazingly short and has a great plot and all of that, great music. But what I love so much about it is the atmosphere and its vibes, and I think that is the key to all of the movies in my actual top 5. is that, okay, I can appreciate the filmmaking, I can appreciate how intelligent and super cool all of this is, but this movie is a place in which I want to be in. It's not even really about the character so much, it's just the entire atmosphere, like the thoughts of this spooky castle that they have and so on. It's the atmosphere is actually perfect, I think, illustrated by a metaphor in the film itself, which is like there are a bunch of white roses, and the main character goes to these roses is saying like, "Oh my god, that's so beautiful." Then she touches it, and immediately it breaks apart. And that's like the atmosphere of this entire movie. It's so beautiful and fragile that the suspense almost comes from your fear of this atmosphere, of this paradise that you are seeing there breaking apart. And yes, it cracks open more and more like in a David Lynch movie. I know we are going to talk about David Lynch and so on. And it feels like that. It feels like yeah, it feels like a British David Lynch. All right, I think that's actually enough. It's in black and white. It's super atmospheric. It's very intelligent. It's like Shining and David Lynch, but in British and very, very, very subtle and so on. Also quite disturbing. It's also about like sexuality with children and so on. And yeah, I think there's, as in The Shining, a much more disturbing underbelly to all of it. But you can enjoy it. It's a comfort movie for me. All of those movies are comfort movies.
Okay, and my number 5 actually is the 166 Minutes of Madness. I actually had the balls to put it on my list, not like you, Philip. And yeah, this is not a great film by any means, but I'm sorry. But yeah, it's obviously a very personal film to me. It's basically my childhood captured on film, which is something very unique, and I value that a lot. So probably no one else will ever put it on their top list, but for me, it's definitely on there. Uh, yeah, that's
It's
all.
amazing. I feel so jealous. I wish I had like the time and the effort and the awareness as a child to be able to do something like that. That's amazing, you guys.
Yeah, thank you to all parents out there. Give your children cameras as presents and not some toys.
Yeah, I don't know.
Agreed.
It can work out or it can't. But yeah. Um. Wait a minute. You are already okay. All right. Continue with your next if there are
Okay, yeah,
no
it's mine.
follow-up questions to
Okay.
this. Or
So, so my number 4 is Yorgos Lanthimos' Dogtooth. I love Dogtooth. It's a great movie. It's very absurd, it's very bold, it's very bizarre. Once you finish it, you feel like you've seen something you will never see again. No one will do this again. This movie is so random, so like the screenplay is insane. I can't imagine the main characters when they received the screenplay what was going on through their head. They were like, this dude is insane. Like, I don't know what is this, but it's a great movie. It's basically one big metaphor. It follows like nameless main characters. No one has names. It talks about isolated children that their parents tried to like kind of isolate them from the world, and they kind of teaches them wrong knowledge. For example, the children calls the chair C. They kind of just jumble around words, and the more you listen to the screenplay, the more you just don't get what are they talking about, because they just jumble words. But this sense of isolation and sense of like distance gives this movie a bit like a feeling that it talks about like colonization and what is it like to be colonized and how you receive information from one single place, and this information might be wrong. um, and it just this movie is shot in a way that feels like it's shot as a home video, like a family home video. But the more you look at it, it feels like it's a family and it's a perfect family. But the more you look at it, you feel like there's something incredibly wrong with this family. So just yeah, Dogtooth, I love it. And the first ever critical article I wrote in my entire life was about Dogtooth and the idea of unlearning. How sometimes when you are a child, you learn something and it's engraved in your soul and personality. And when you grow up, you learn to unlearn it because it's wrong. And you kind of, it's a very heavy process.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've watched this movie today for the first time, because of this, not because of this video, because I didn't know what the pics were going to be, because this is all like super authentic and so on. No, 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 no. But yeah, I also really loved it. I loved the humor. I loved the philosophical ideas in it,
Yes,
and I have not thought about this entire thing of relearning because I don't know anything about it. But I was familiar with like certain philosophical and political theories about power and so on, and how power structures manifest in language and all of this. And I think this movie is really at the same time hilarious and disturbing depiction of
yes.
that. And yeah, I loved it too. And it's pretty short. I think it's like 100 minutes or something. So yes, I can
Yeah.
I can also recommend it to you if you haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it. I've only seen Poor Things by Lanthimos, and I liked it. So yeah, I might check it out. Yeah.
All right. So my number four.
Yes, I love Poor Things.
Yeah, me too. Sorry that we are going so fast. I think we have. I don't know.
It's okay.
Okay. So my number four is, Tom. You're going to hate this, but you already know what's gonna come. Is Black Christmas from 1974 from Bob Clark. I hope that's right. And yes, this is like a prototypical pre-Halloween slasher movie from the 70s from Canada. And it's pretty cheap. It takes place in a handful of locations, and that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. It's sort of the same thing actually as with Dogtooth. Maybe that's actually my favorite Lanthimos film now, because I love movies that can convey a very perfectionistic vision with limited budget. And so there's like a cheapness and the rawness to it, to the images. With Black Christmas, you have like, I don't know, maybe even 16 millimeter film, so you see film grain everywhere, and it's very visceral, almost like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and so on. But every shot and cut and so on feels not perfect in like a persona way or anything like that, obviously not. But it is a very artistically crafted film that's very original, and it is about this psychotic killer who is hiding on the attic of a sorority house, and he's like basically prank calling the girls there with very creepy, sexually explicit stuff that he's just spewing out there and so on. Um, and the main character is Jessie. She's like a young woman in the sorority house, and she's pregnant from her boyfriend, and she wants to have an abortion. And so they argue about all of this, and we think maybe her boyfriend is the killer and so on. But spoiler, it never really gets revealed who the killer is. He never gets found or anything like that. It's completely unresolved, and I think what I first of all, it's an intelligent metaphor. It's taking place at Christmas. It's like this holiday of family and so on. And there is the potential for a happy family there with Jessie, the protagonist, and her boyfriend and the baby and so on. But she wants to have an abortion and so on. She doesn't want to marry her boyfriend. So this entire movie is almost like a perverted childhood memory of Christmas. And it really feels to me like my childhood memories of Christmas, because they even play this song, which is, I think, even an Austrian song, which is Where We Live, this Stille Nacht, heilige Nacht, alles schläft, la 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 la. And yes, and it's very nostalgic for me in that sense. And also, this entire movie is filled with this perverse sexual violence. And it's everywhere. And I think it's completely underrated, this movie. It takes place almost in a heightened, parallel, poetic universe. I think you should watch it again. Every scene in this movie has is implicitly drained with sexual violence and perversion. For example, there's like a scene where you have like a Santa Claus who is just sitting there with a child on his lap, and then he says like he's drinking like alcohol, giving alcohol to the child, and saying, "Ho ho ho, shit, ho ho ho, fuck." And every scene is like that, and I think it's actually funny. Again, everyone has to laugh at this, and then you think a little bit about it, and then you think, oh wow, this is actually really messed up. And so I love the atmosphere of it. It's creepy, it's disturbing and perverse, but it's also really funny, I think. I can laugh about all those stupid side characters. Also, the old lady, the home mother of the sorority house, looks like the main actor from 166 Minutes when he was 12 years old. And this is not a joke. It's like this 50-year-old woman with makeup on. He looks exactly like him at 12 years old. And I am going to make this the thumbnail of this video so that everyone can see it. And your face. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate Black Christmas, just to make this clear. I just don't like it that much. I think it's kind of boring, and the killer is pretty pathetic. And yeah, do you have any thoughts about this film? Have you seen it?
No, I haven't, but that sounds amazing. I have to see this.
Okay. Then I'll go on with my number 4 pick, which is The Invisible Man by James Whale from the year 1933, the original version of The Invisible Man. This is maybe my ultimate comfort film, maybe. I saw it a lot as a kid, and it's just a really fun time, mainly because of Claude Rains, who is, of course, a legendary actor, but this was kind of his breakthrough role. And he plays this mad scientist who has turned himself invisible before the start of the film. And the entire film, he tries to turn himself visible again, but the way he turned invisible, the chemicals that he injected, also make him slowly go insane, which is a really cool concept. Of course, this film is based off the H.G. Wells novella, which is a very different kind of story, actually. I mean, it's the same premise, but it's very different. Uh, so yeah, this film is carried by Claude Rains, definitely, but also the screenplay, it's especially the dialogue is really genius in my opinion. This is one of the most quotable films of all time. Like every other sentence is an iconic line in my opinion. And of course, the special effects are absolutely groundbreaking. Basically, making green screen effects before cameras could even see color for the most part. So yeah, absolutely groundbreaking film. James Whale is also one of my favorite kind of horror directors. He also made Frankenstein and the Old Dark House and stuff. He always has this certain sense of humor that's probably best seen in his casting choice of Una O'Connor as a lady at the bar who is totally over the top. She plays it ridiculously, but it somehow works within the context of the film. Yeah, this is one I also could throw on every day and watch it probably twice in a row because it's just a lot of fun. So yeah, what's your guys' opinion of the film?
Yeah, I love it too, of course. I mean, yeah.
No, I haven't seen it too. But
Um,
that also sounds amazing. Like I would definitely see that. This premise sounds amazing.
sure, yeah. It's great. It's only an hour long, I think. So it's incredibly short and entertaining watch, I think. Yeah. I'm going. Oh, it's your turn, actually. Oh my god.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So my third, I think we're number 3 now. Third movie, I will go with Eraserhead by David Lynch. David Lynch is my guy. It's just I love that man. I love him so much. Like every single thing that's inside his mind is fascinating, honestly. And I love Eraserhead. I think Eraserhead is a perfect movie in every single aspect. I've seen it like 8 to 9 times. I know it every single scene, and I used to have the guy from Eraserhead as my wallpaper for the longest time. It's just an incredibly inspiring movie, not only because of the movie, but the story behind it and how it took him almost a decade to direct this movie. How like he was literally just saving a little bit of money, going like to just shoot one scene, then go back to his house, save a little bit of money. And there was like a huge gap, almost years between each scene and scene. Yet the movie doesn't feel like that. It feels so smooth and so like, you don't feel this gap. And the depiction of David Lynch to the era of industrialism and how at that time it felt scary, how like there is so much pollution in the air, the ground, the streets look so nasty, and how he just depicted the idea that there is so much industry, how it ruined the pureness of earth, and earth just became a very black and white place. It's a place that just, it's not colorful, it's not pure anymore. And I don't have to say this, but David Lynch is an incredible director that can direct dreams, and he's just so good at it. Like, he is fascinated by the idea of dreams and how dreams is the only way where you and I are completely honest, because there is no filtration. Our mind is the one who's controlling what you can see. And how like your subconscious is so messy, it kind of just jumbles around a mishmash between memories, future thoughts, past thoughts, insecurities. All of these things just kind of comes in a form of a dream. So your dream is the only way your body is communicating with you. And also the practical effects with the baby, how the baby looks like an alien. Oh my god, brilliant. It's brilliant. And I read that after they finished making the movie, he did not want anyone to know how they made this baby, so they went into like a random desert and they buried it, so no one has to like find out the secret how he did. Oh my god, that's amazing. This is why I love cinema, because there's just this is a passionate person. This is someone who just like loves cinema. And it's just the honest depiction of how creating a family, having a wife and a children is such a heavy burden. It's just a burden. And cinema is the only place where you can be honest and no one is going to judge you. So yeah, that's my number three, Eraserhead by David Lynch.
Yes, I loved that movie. I agree with everything you just said, except maybe one thing. I think you said that our dreams are like completely unfiltered. Actually, I'm not really sure if I would agree with that. I think with David Lynch, it's almost like the dreams themselves have something like an own language that you have to decode, and at some point you realize what it's trying to convey to you, and then something breaks, right? Like in this scene in Mulholland Drive when they are in the Silencio club and so on, and she realizes that it's all an illusion and so on, and in this moment she has like this panic attack, and then the entire movie basically breaks and so on. So yeah, I don't know, but that's like a super complex theoretical discussion, I think. But yeah, Eraser is a beautiful nightmare. I don't know, Tom, do you have any opinions?
I mean, yeah, look, I like David Lynch as a guy. I respect him as an artist. I'm not the biggest fan of his films, I have to say, but Eraserhead is one of his better ones, definitely, in my opinion. I don't love it or anything. I think the uh, metaphor works well enough. Like, it's a good film. I have nothing really against it, but don't feel this. I don't feel very engaged in it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk about David Lynch later on more. I also can say I watched this movie the first time with the super unfamous Austrian director Amro El-Tetawi, who also originates from Egypt, by the way. And we watched this movie for the first time, and his interpretation was, okay, so is this movie taking place in a gigantic falafel? He thought that the guy in the beginning was like flying through a gigantic falafel world. And that was so but he is a surrealist too, definitely, and his interpretations of movies are always more surreal than the actual movies, and he even managed to do this with Eraserhead, which is quite an achievement, I have to say. All right, without any further ado, shout out to Amro and so on if you ever watch this. And yeah, my number 3 is The Long Goodbye by this guy from Three Women and from McCabe and Miss Miller, Robert Altman. Robert Altman. And I love Robert Altman. I actually don't like his like multi-character epics. I've only seen Nashville. Uh, if we are talking about his famous multi-character epics with like 20 plus characters, I didn't like Nashville at all. But all of his intimate, small-scale character dramas, I absolutely adored. I love McCabe and Miss Miller. It's my favorite Western. I would have put it on this list too. I love Three Women so much. I love The Long Goodbye. What they have in common is there's such a deep understanding of loneliness and melancholy in these films, and they have a very soft surrealism above them. And I chose The Long Goodbye, which I think is probably the worst movie out of the three. Three Women is probably the best one, I would say. The Long Goodbye has this amazing cynical humor going through this entire movie. It's not a comedy. It's just forgetting that it's not a comedy. It's funny throughout, I think. It's about this. It's like a detective thriller, basically. It's a neo noir movie from the 70s. And you follow this detective, Philip Marlowe, and he is this loner, this lonely, completely rundown character. And you follow him through this sort of almost dream landscape, like in a David Lynch movie. There's, for example, always the same song playing wherever he goes. Through the radio, people are singing it at parties and so on. And it's this deeply melancholic song called The Long Goodbye. And it's like it's following him. The entire movie is full of it. And his strategy to get along in this world, in this incredibly lonely, dark world where like every relationship between human beings in this entire movie goes catastrophically wrong. There's no relationship in this movie that doesn't end in a catastrophe. And his strategy against that is like this incredibly cynical humor. And it's really hilarious. And at the same time, it's the bluesiest movie of all time, I think. I watch it and it's like blues for 2 hours, but at the same time, I'm like chuckling. I'm not like laughing out loud, but I'm chuckling because I don't know. I just like his punk rock attitude almost towards all of this. And it has an interesting and engaging story. And yes, I can watch this movie over and over and over and be deeply moved by it, but also just be entertained by it. And there are like deep philosophical ideas in this movie. Robert Altman is a great artist and a very serious artist. Um, but yes, you are not really confronted with them in the same way that you are confronted with all of this in Persona and so on. So this movie is, I think, great, but it's not that exhausting like something like 166 minutes. That's it. Have you seen the movie? What are your thoughts?
I've seen only Three Women, and I think this movie is amazing. Like, I just feel like, as you said, it's a depiction of loneliness, and it's a depiction of what really goes inside your head when you are lonely. Not in a romanticized way, in a glamorized way, in a cinematic way, no. In like a realistic way where you feel like, even if you're over this kind of feeling and you go back to this movie, you're reminded how the taste of loneliness feels like. It's I will definitely see The Long Goodbye.
I haven't seen any of Altman's films, unfortunately. I know it's kind of a blind spot. He's a very famous director, so I'll definitely check out some of his work. And now I'm gonna talk about my number 3, which is The Milky Way from the year 1969 by one of my favorite directors of all time, Luis Buñuel. He's famously a surrealist director, so his films sometimes don't make that much sense on a logical level. And The Milky Way, in my opinion, perfectly balances his surrealist style and humor with a narrative, sort of. We follow those two homeless people, basically, who just wander from one city to another city, and encounter a bunch of different weird characters and people and situations. It's really hard to describe this film because every single scene is something completely new, completely different. What they all have in common is this sort of religious satire, which is something I really appreciate. I think this film is hilarious. We have made it kind of a tradition to watch a Buñuel film at Christmas with the family, and it's always only us two who laugh at the jokes, but that makes it even better, in my opinion. Yeah, this is one of the funniest films ever made to me. I could quote it all day long. And again, I could only recommend it to anyone. It's also a very well crafted film. Buñuel is not only a brilliant surrealist, he's also a brilliant just director. Uh, so, yeah. Have you seen the film? Have you any thoughts?
I've seen for Buñuel, I've seen Belle de Jour and The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, and I love both of them. They are very different movies in general. I think that The Discreet Charm is one of the most entertaining movies ever. Like the screenplay in this movie is insane. You feel like it's a masterclass on how to write screenplays for this many like this amount of people inside the scene. But I will definitely see this one too.
The Discreet Charm is also one of my favorites, and in my opinion, the Milky Way is kind of similar to the Discreet Charm in the sense of entertainment and humor.
I think
That's amazing.
I think that the Milky Way is not as entertaining as the Discreet Charm and so on. But yeah, I love Buñuel too, of course. I think what's so great about Buñuel is that he is this completely crazy and insane individual if you listen to interviews with him and so on. And he is like this uh, original surrealist who like worked with Salvador Dali and so on. But his movies, especially those late movies, they almost feel like TV movies. If I would catch one of those movies on television, I would think that this is like, I don't know, a Columbo episode almost. And then suddenly, for example, in The Discreet Charm, he would cut to like an extreme close up of someone and they're like just saying, okay, let's serve the tea. And then he cuts away. And you think, what is he doing? So he kind of fools you and makes you think that this movie is sort of normal, but it's not. And that's what I very much appreciate. Uh, but yeah, it's your turn. If yeah,
Okay, we're down to two movies. Okay, my next movie, some might say it's a cliche. Like everybody who loves cinema will love Fellini's Eight and a Half. But even if it's cliche, I love Eight and a Half. It's a brilliant movie. It's a love letter to filmmakers. It's a love letter to cinema. And it's true cinema. It's a sneak peek into what goes inside the mind of an artist, someone who's like, has dreams and hopes and criticism about himself. And it's just a very honest depiction of like the harshness of how artists talks to themselves. And it's truly a unique cinematic experience. I saw it in the weirdest way possible. There was one random screening here in Egypt in an opera house. So there was like this beautiful opera with like 1,000 chairs and like this huge like screen, and everyone was down sitting like watching Eight and a Half. It was like so surreal. And the opera kind of elevated the experience of the movie with like the red curtains, and it's so dramatic. And I think Eight and a Half is the most influential movie on all directors like that came after Fellini. Like I just feel like the confusion of an artist and how the mind of an artist is so chaotic and messy, and the artist himself doesn't understand his thoughts and doesn't understand his beliefs, and that's okay. The movie kind of just tells you it's okay to be confused. And and this is depicted through the hallucinations in the movies. And this movie really needs you to see it a few times. The first time I saw the movie, I was like, what the heck is that? Like, I don't get anything. I have no idea, like, who even is, like, who are these people and what are their connections to each other, because it's just such a dense and layered movie, and it requires multiple viewing in general. And it's just really, like, honest. Like, it's just someone who, artists in general, they like to have a facade to kind of like build a persona of themselves, but this movie kind of breaks this persona. It pushes the boundary of what is it like to be a true artist. And being a true artist doesn't mean that you are successful with lots of money and lots of fame. No, it means that you are self-critical, you're confused, you're doubting yourself every single day, but you know how to get up again, you know how to, like, get yourself back on track in general. So 8.5, Fellini's 8.5 is perfect for me.
When you started out to describe what an artist is, I thought, hey, that's me. And then when you continued with this, but he can build himself up again, I thought, no, but I have seen this movie, but only once, and I think it's the same for you. And so I think this effect that you described, I think you're dead on that, because I was incredibly confused by this. I have seen a lot of a few movies, like 5 or 6 by Fellini, and I don't know, I just don't really vibe with him that much. I have seen La Dolce Vita maybe like 5 or 6 times, and I get it, like it's brilliant and so on, but I don't know. I just think La Dolce Vita is too long, but I mean, I like surrealism, and I like to explore the creative process. So maybe I would like 8.5 more if I watched again. I mean, I think it's a great movie. It's a great masterpiece and so on, and it's super creative. But yeah, I don't know. I can't really say much about it because it has been a long time ago, and I can't remember half of the movie. So I don't know. I liked it, but I was confused, but I was also definitely stunned and intrigued.
I have nothing to add to that.
I think you guys should. I think you guys should see it again, honestly, because, like, the more you grow as an artist, the more you can see yourself depicted in this movie.
For sure. I'm gonna do that. Right, great.
Okay, you're number 2.
All right, so my number two is Wild Strawberries by Ingmar Bergman, my favorite director. For sure, he should have won a Nobel Prize for Literature, because holy shit, his screenplays are absolutely insane, and he wrote like a lot of them. That Bob Dylan has a Nobel Prize, and I don't want to go into this. I like Bob Dylan. I think he's a great songwriter and so on. But man, you really should have, given one to Bergman for sure. And yes, I took Wild Strawberries over Persona, even though I think Persona is ultimately the better movie, in the sense that every shot and every cut in Persona is like fascinating and worth studying for hours probably. And in Wild Strawberries, there are almost like only a couple of shots and scenes that like really stuck with me. For example, there's this great shot where this old guy Isaac Borg, who is brilliantly played by Victor Sjöström, is sitting in the car, and he plays this old doctor, and there are like these 3 young people, and they applaud him for having figured out the meaning of life and something like that. They say something like that, and then the camera moves to him very slowly, and at the same time all the lights go out around him, and everything around his face gets like dark, and that's like a great expressionistic shot. But other than that, I think this movie is just great and brilliantly directed, but it's not like on that intense level of Persona. But yes, what is this movie about, and why do I love it so much? It's about this old guy Isaac Borg, and this is like for me a totally me character. It's like this old guy who is fed up with the world, who gets like admired by everyone, but he can't really um get anything out of that anymore. And he is on this road trip. This is also the best road trip movie of all time. And yes, he's just reminiscing over his past, his life, his family and friends. And I cannot go too much into the details of all of this because this movie is under 90 minutes long. And it has probably almost like a dozen character and more characters. And all of them, even though some of them only appear for a few minutes, you know them after those few minutes, and they are written with more depth and poetry than some characters who are like the main characters of like 2.5 hour movies nowadays. Because Bergman is just that good at writing. And yes, it's just such a heartwarming and also existentially dense movie. And I really cannot describe it. It's like this old guy and he's like dealing with death and with his past. It sounds like a cliche, but yes, you just have to watch it, I guess, because it's already so dense that I cannot condense it any further.
Yeah, I also absolutely love this film. I think it's a work of pure genius. Absolutely highly recommended. And Victor Sjöström, for those who maybe don't know, was actually another Swedish director who directed a lot of famous silent films. And Bergman was a huge fan of his, so he cast him in this film, which is a really strange tradition. I won't get into that too much. Have you seen Wild Strawberries?
Yeah, I have seen it actually. There was a festival here in Cairo when I was probably 15, 16, and they screened all of Bergman's movies. So as a 16-year-old, I for an entire week I was seeing two Bergman movie, like one after the other. So at the end of the week, I just felt like I'm a bit smarter. I've like consumed so much like good sentences and like amazing writing. I just feel like I became like a little bit of a smarter person. And Wild Strawberries is an excellent movie. And yes, the writing of Bergman, his movies feels like a respectful piece of literature. Like you have read something that's just so well written, characters that are so well rounded, that they have a past, and you can see them. It feels like they are living in an alternative world, and you just peeked through a little bit of their life. But they do exist before you saw it and after you leave the movie, in the best way possible. So yeah, I love Bergman. He's like probably the best like writer in general.
Okay, so complete whiplash to my number two pick, which is the Rocky Horror Picture Show from the year 1975, I think, which is this insane pop musical love letter to 50s sci-fi and horror films. Uh, it's basically about a white straight couple from 70s America who strand at a weird castle which is filled with a lot of queer people, so to speak, uh, in the truest sense of the word, just unordinary people of different sexual orientations and stuff, and they get their whole world basically shook. And this film, in my opinion, is unironically one of the greatest films ever made. In the same sense that, like, an Andy Warhol painting might be one of the greatest paintings ever made. It's the epiphany of pop art, in my opinion. Also, I really love the music. It gets stuck in my head every time I watch this film. And, which was also really cool, I actually watched this in a packed theater in Vienna a couple of months ago, and they handed out free alcohol and stuff, and the whole crowd was shouting along. It was a really unique and fun movie going experience, and has kept this film. Those sort of events have kept this film alive. Literally, since it was first released, it's been continuously shown in theaters, which makes it the longest running film of all time.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy it too. I mean, I'm not that much in love with it or anything. The thing is, I just hate musicals for some reason so much that even the really good ones that I actually really like Dance in the Dark, this one, and also I love, of course, Singing in the Rain and Wizard of Oz and so on. But yeah, it will probably never.
Actually, I was about to put Singing in the Rain in my list.
Oh yeah, Singing in the Rain is absolutely incredible. Have you seen Singing in the Rain?
Of course.
It's fantastic. But yes, have you seen the movie?
No, I haven't. But I love the way you described it, how it's like, it feels like an Andy Warhol, like a painting, like it's the epitome of pop. I love that.
I'm
Such
not.
a good sentence.
I mean, it's a good sentence. I just don't think that it's accurate because I'm not sure. Um, Comparing it to Warhol, I'm not really sure because it's like this horror movie homage of like goth and so on. And Warhol, I think, is much more inspired by, I don't know, like other things of pop culture, but not necessarily goth, right?
But that's not really what I mean. What I mean is his the way both of those Andy Warhol as a whole and the Rocky Horror Picture Show take pre-existing works of art and of pop culture and yeah, kind of paint spray over it to make it more colorful and more artistic in a sense. And yeah, this way to transform pre-existing art, in my opinion, is on its peak at in the Rocky Horror Picture Show and with Warhol's art.
Understood.
Okay, so my turn. My favorite movie. Okay, so I went back and forth, but I think a movie that I'm very confident to go with is In the Mood for Love by Wong Kar-wai. Oh my god. Wong Kar-wai is like a hopeless romantic, like, and he is just someone who is so in love with people. The more you watch his movies, the more you just feel how he appreciates the small things that makes us human. The way we laugh, the way our eyes closes, the way like our teeth are crooked, the way our hair is messy, all these little things is what makes him a great director. He just loves depicting fun humans in general. And again, here in Egypt, also there was like a bunch of screenings for Chungking Express and In the Mood for Love and Fallen Angels and a bunch of Wong Kar-wai movies. But In the Mood for Love, I've seen this movie for like 5 times, and every single time I see it, I feel like there's like things crawling on my skin from how beautiful every single aspect in this movie is. The movie just depicts the idea that you are seeing two main characters going through a story, and in the middle of the movie, you realize that the director is also telling you the story of two completely different characters through their story. So you feel like you are seeing what is it like to be human, how humans are just little cute beautiful creatures that are just, you know, they get hurt and they need one another, to kind of heal themselves. And the soundtrack in this movie is absolutely stunning. Like, I kept on listening to the soundtrack of In the Mood for Love for like 4 years straight. Every single time I start like driving or anything, I just put it on, and it makes me feel like I'm in love. I'm in love with cinema. And the cinematography in this movie, the colors, the color correction in this movie was absolutely beautiful. It feels like you're watching a bunch of paintings. And the main characters are so pretty. The way they dress is so pretty, along with the colors in the background, with the cinematography, with how elegant everyone is just acting. It just feels like you are watching a painting moving in the best way possible. And it's just Wong Kar-wai is, again, he's a hopeless romantic. The more you look at him and the more you look at his characters, the more you understand how humans are after all this hatred and evil and horrible things happening in the world, after all, we're just fragile, small little creatures who need to be loved and love other people. We need this to survive together in this world. So, In the Mood for Love, absolutely perfect movie. Wong Kar-wai, he's just, someone who's really, really, really good at making you fall in love with humanity all over again.
The way you describe this movie, I think, is brilliant, and I have seen it once. But I don't know, it's so complicated with me and this movie because I think that I have got it, like why it's so good, but it somehow left me oddly cold when I watched it the first time. I don't know why. I just was sort of confused a little bit. Also, uh, yeah, I don't know what to say about it. I just thought, oh wow, yeah, that's really incredible. Uh, I just wasn't in the mood for it, I guess. No pun intended. Oh my god. Um, no, but yeah, I can't explain it. I think I should love this film, but I don't. But maybe it's also just my problem generally with this entire topic of the mood for love and so on. And I think it is a mood piece to some extent. Maybe you agree or disagree, but a lot of what makes this movie special, I think, is this ambience of like these rooms and situations and the thoughts and the frames through which those characters are like moving and they are existing in these places. And that's like something that is very important to me, as I think I've explained, is like the world of a movie and the landscape and so on. And it's maybe just too romantic for me. Maybe that's my problem with it. Maybe that's why I enjoy Haneke a little bit more. For example, with The Long Goodbye and so on, where I say that no relationship ever works and it's all a big catastrophe. In a sense, this movie is, I think, I heard Wong Kar-wai say this, I think, in an interview, that this movie is actually pretty dark if you look at it closer. I think everything that you said is completely correct and so on, but also there is like a certain melancholy and sadness, of course, of this movie. So yeah, but somehow I just didn't vibe with it. But I've only seen it once, so I have to watch it again. Yes.
And I think that the beauty in this movie is how, this is what I was trying to tell you, that we as people, we are lonely and we are fragile and we need one another. And this is the beauty in the movie. Like I'm not saying romantic in like love or relationship. No, romantic as like human connection in general. Like the movie like makes you feel like part of being human is being fragile, is needing people to just accompany you through this harsh life in general. And this is why I think he's a hopeless romantic, because he just believes that we can make good communities, we can connect to one another.
I mean, it sounds so great, so I think I'll just have to watch it again and so on. But yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. Have you seen this?
I haven't seen any of his films, unfortunately. I know he's like this super celebrated director. I really need to watch it, yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you have to see In the Mood for Love and Chunking Express, because that's like so entertaining. It's a perfect
That's
movie.
his other big one, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I have not seen Chungking Express.
Mm.
I've only seen Fallen Angels and In the Mood for Love, and I liked Fallen Angels a lot more because they were just like, like shootouts and bam bam and so on, and I like that, and really crazy fish-eyed lenses and so on. It just felt like a little bit like In the Mood for Love, but with schizophrenia or something. And yes, I think I'm going now to my number one if there are no further comments. All right. So my number one pick is uh, Twin Peaks. I am going to say Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, which is like the Twin Peaks movie, but I would also just say like the entire Twin Peaks, I don't know what even to call it, franchise, I guess. Um, yes, it's by David Lynch, the movie and the entire TV show. Um, I'm not really sure. I think I will just explain what the movie is about. And yes, it's just too much going on in the entire franchise to explain it all. But the movie is basically about all the things that I'm interested in art in general. It's like probably one of the best and deepest character studies of all time that like pretty much half of David Lynch's movies are that, I think. And it explores this deep trauma in a young girl, woman. I think she's supposed to be like 16 in this movie or something. And yes, I don't know if I
Yeah.
can really explain this without spoiling the entire thing. But so I'm going to be very abstract. But this movie is basically one of the darkest, most disturbing movies about trauma, sexual violence, loss of innocence, drug abuse, prostitution, crime, all the things that I like in movies and so on that are like really dark. This is one of the most disturbing movies I've ever seen, and it's also um, one of the. It has to be the most brilliant depiction, I think, of trauma from sexual violence in cinema because again, and I don't know how David Lynch is doing this. It seems to me that I don't think that he's like analyzing everything he's doing. It's like the guy from 8.5, I think, much more, that he somehow has an understanding how the subconscious works and how the subconscious processes things. So he can say something like, okay, I'll write a story about sexual violence, but he can almost see all of that through the perspective of the unconscious, which is like super unique and strange and absolutely rare. And I think he has the greatest talent for doing this from pretty much any artist that I have ever encountered. And yes, this movie is at the same time super disturbing, one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. I have to say, the last moments in this movie when she's like laughing into the camera and so on, it has something cosmic and transcendent to it. I think this is almost a cosmic horror movie in the sense that we are in the subconscious of this person, and so the entire cosmos that we are seeing is this terrible nightmare that she is in. There's also a great metaphor in it that is so almost that is cosmic, yes, when she's like asked, what do you think if you're like flying through space? Would you get faster or slow down after a while? And she says you would go faster and faster and you wouldn't feel anything for a long time. And then suddenly you would burst in flames. And that's exactly how like trauma functions when it comes up again and so on. And you don't realize maybe that you have been traumatized for a long, long time. And then suddenly something snaps, you get triggered and you have a panic attack or something. And David Lynch, I think, understands this entire process so much better than pretty much anybody else. And it's also one of the funniest movies. For me, I don't know, those first 30 minutes, you follow those quirky FBI characters, and I just vibe with the humor. It's surreal, it's utterly disturbing, and it's funny, and it's a comfort movie, oddly for me. It starts out as a comfort movie, then transforms into a completely horrific, harrowing experience, and ends with something that's super transcendent. Like, yeah, I don't know, how can you describe transcendence like an ego death on mushrooms? All right, I think that's enough, and you will have to watch the movie if you want to know like the actual details and plot elements, but I cannot explain them without spoiling the entire thing.
I mean, to me, fire apparently didn't work with me because this film left me cold. It didn't have any of the effects on me that you've described. I mean, maybe I really just didn't get it when I watched it. I've also recently watched the Twin Peaks show, at least most of the first two seasons. I don't see the appeal. Like, to me, this is a slightly above average mystery show. Nothing special. I'm sorry.
I love Twin Peaks in general. Like, I just love Twin Peaks. I think Twin Peaks is so entertaining, and because this is like the only time we see David Lynch have like the time to like draw huge storylines and huge connections between the characters. He just does it so well, and there's always like an underlying layer of humor that makes the TV show so entertaining. Like, for example, remember the random dude that just comes out and he's like, light, 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 light. And then, like, that means something as you go on with the TV show. It's amazing. And the amount of drama that happened between David Lynch and the producers in the middle of the TV show, and how he came back again. It's just, he really believed in this idea. And I love the movie. And there's David Bowie in it, which is amazing.
Yeah, I think David Bowie is actually really pretty random, I have to say. But again, he's also funny. But yeah, Tom, I completely disagree that Twin Peaks, the show, is slightly above average. I think that's also just an artistic masterpiece. And maybe we should explain again, um, in a similar way as I've explained with The Innocents and so on. The TV show is basically the entire concept. What David Lynch is doing in many of his movies is he is establishing a genre, uh, playing with the genre conventions, and with Twin Peaks is like just like a soap opera sitcom, right? And that is basically, I think, the conscious mind of those people in a sense. Like, it's the place that's organized. You know what's going to happen. It's a soap opera. It's structured like a soap opera. And then it breaks, and the subconscious, right, like the Beatles in Blue Velvet, break out of that. And that's what David Lynch basically connects the cultural subconscious and consciousness with the personal consciousness and subconsciousness. Somehow he's able to connect those two things super seamless. And no, I don't think that Twin Peaks is slightly above average. I think every shot in Twin Peaks is already about all of those things like sexual violence and trauma and so on. You just don't feel it yet because you're not yet uh, burning, or the show is not yet there. But it's moving constantly, and there's always something off with about it. For example, this entire thing about the gum and so on, how they catch at the end the killer, and it's just by the FBI agent is just saying like something about gum, that the gum is coming back in style, and then the killer says like, yeah, I used to eat like that gum as a child. And it's immediately clear, oh yeah, he was sexually traumatized as a child, and there's no further explanation for any of this, and it immediately gets through to you. It's one of that's completely genius. Who else can do something like this? Who else could do a reveal of the past traumatic experience of a character by a dialogue scene like that in 30 seconds? That's incredible. Okay, let's shut up about that if no one has anything more to say about it. And yeah, I don't know. Have you something to say? Do you agree with
No,
mine?
I'm good.
Okay, Tom, let's go.
I definitely believe that Twin Peaks is perfect for me. It's not above average. It's really, really, really well made piece of art in general.
The second season, I think, gets really bad and really unnecessary. And then David Lynch returns, and that's when literally the last episode of the second season gets like brilliant again.
Yeah, I know I'm in the minority with my Twin Peaks dislike somewhat. Anyways, my number one film is Metropolis from the year 1927 by Fritz Lang, which is basically the reason why I didn't put M in my top 5, because I knew I was going to talk about Fritz Lang anyways. And yes, this film to me is one level above everything else. Like, forget every other film we've talked about. Metropolis is on a completely different level. It's basically um, in a sense, I want to make this comparison to the Bible, which was obviously an inspiration for Metropolis. I'm not a religious person at all, but when someone talks about that book, you basically know they are talking about the Bible. And to me, if someone would say that film, that would be Metropolis. It just has this status to me of being at the top of the entire art form. And it's really funny because the first time I watched this film was basically in the worst way you could ever watch a film. I just had my old ass laptop next to my bed. I was laying in my bed, passively staring at the screen and falling asleep halfway through. And when I woke up, I didn't know anything about the story. I couldn't tell you what any of the characters' names were, but I still had in my mind engraved that this was the greatest film I had ever seen. And this really speaks to the subconscious in a way that David Lynch never could. Uh, this film is an absolute masterpiece, and every time I rewatched it, I'm in awe again that it actually does hold up to my high expectations. Um, yeah, another thing you can do with this film, which I've actually done to show another brilliant aspect of it, you can open it up on YouTube or wherever you find it and skip to any random frame. Just pause the film, skip to any random frame, and I guarantee you, you could print it out and hang it on your wall as a piece of art, and no one would bat an eye. This film is the definition of every frame a painting. It's beautiful. The story is uh, complex, yes, but also very human. It very much speaks to us as a species and as a society. It has been called communist by the fascists and fascist by the communists, so that should tell you that it's fairly honest in its politics and its messaging. And yes, this film is way too rich to break down in a couple of minutes. I could talk literally all day about it.
Well, um, yeah, I also like it. I think it's great how you watched it on a fucking laptop and fall asleep and then woke up and thought, "Ah, this is to be the best movie." Are you sure that you haven't had like, how is it called? If brain bust? Yeah, I don't know. That's a very strange story. Um, yes, I agree. I have only seen it once, and it's a long time in the past. And I don't know, I just don't really like silent movies. That's it.
I've seen Metropolis and I think it's a great movie. As you said, if you pause this movie at any given point, you will get a wallpaper that's like a painting. That's like a something that you can hang on a wall. It's a piece. And there's like this random thing that happened here in Cairo. There was like a video festival where like you can wear a VR and you can look through like very beautiful things. And then one time I went there and I put on a VR and then I saw scenes from Metropolis. It was so random. And then when I went home, I was like, what is this? What are these beautiful scenes? I would like to see this movie. I saw the movie and I just thought that this is the epitome of cinema. Like the way this movie looks, the way like it's so innovative from like I can't imagine this movie is made so long ago and still stands as if it's made like today. It's so well made, it's so beautiful, it's so artistic. It's a great choice.
I mean, I can't really add anything to that. It's surely a great masterpiece and blah blah blah, and I'm super overwhelmed by it. It's probably just that if I my problem with it is just that it hasn't this psychological depth to it, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I like art that makes me feel like I don't know, I tap into something of myself that I wasn't aware of previously. And I'm not really sure if this movie is giving that to me. So I would say that this movie is great, but it's not a transcendental piece of art for me, if that makes any sense. Like, I cannot imagine watching this and being a different person afterwards. And that's something that I think for something like Twin Peaks can actually work. But I don't know. That's just me personally. That's not even like a real criticism of the movie. It's just yeah. But I still love it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's absolutely a life-changing experience watching this film, and I do think it's psychologically interesting In a sense, it's about more about society as a whole than any individual's psychology. But you know, Philip, you as a student of philosophy should know that Hegel sees the entirety of mankind as one big conscious being, and in that sense, of course, this film is very psychological.
That's questionable, but yeah, we can argue about that all day. I'm not an expert on Hegel or anything like that. Mostly because you borrowed my only book that I had from him and haven't returned it for like months. So
Just like with Twin Peaks, you will have to wait for the return. And if no one else has anything to say, I think we can come to an end after this episode that's feature length, actually.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah,
I had so much fun. Thank you, guys.
thank you so much for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure. And yeah, goodbye.
yeah, thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Yeah, I have nothing else to say. Thank you too.